This is Mitch, and welcome to the taxfreefuture.com little video vignettes. We're here to answer questions, and Jennifer's been doing a great job of compiling questions from people and kind of making an FAQ, but I thought we'd just start addressing them in these little short, tiny segments. And we want you to feel free. Please write down your questions and email them to Jen at taxfreefuture.com. Jen, Jen, at taxfreefuture.com, and we're going to get to your questions. We're going to do this once a week, every Monday at 1 o'clock until we decide not to. But so far, there's a lot to talk about. So we could probably go on for several decades, but we're going to start out and see how interested people are and how much good we can do. So Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm awesome. Mitch, Tim, how are you guys?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you.
Happy Monday. So I wanted to talk about how to be an active investor. What does that look like, and how does that pertain to what we do, and how you can use your 401k IRA to do that?
One of the biggest questions that I hear all the time is like, I don't have a lot of money. Like when I first opened my accounts, I just opened them with the bare minimum. At the time, I think I could get by with $250, a mere $250. So what do you do to grow $250? That's where most people drop off right there. I paid $3,000 to go to a seminar one time just for my chair, not for the airline ticket or the hotel. It was in San Francisco. It wasn't cheap. And I walked out of that thing right at the end of the first day and never went back to the second day because I was overwhelmed with what I wanted to do. I was so excited about it, and I didn't want to pollute the nugget at all. And so what I learned was I could open my account with $250, and then I could go find a house that was worth, and I'm just using hypothetical numbers here, it was worth $100,000, and I could get it under contract for $50. So I self-directed my account to put up the $100 earnest money to create a purchase contract for $50,000 on a house that was worth $100. And when the seller signed that contract, effectively what happened was my account now had $150 in it because I spent $100 on the earnest money to the title company. And it had a contract. It owned a contract to buy a piece of real estate, and it had 30, 40 days to close. And then I directed that account to sell the contract to an investor in town for $15,000 more than the $50,000 I had contracted for. So essentially, I assigned my contract for $15,000 plus the $100 earnest money. So my account went from $250 to $15,250 in a very short period of time. Now, there's some minutia to this, right, Tim? And you have to address it. If we do it certain ways, it could be taxable income. If we do it some other ways, we could not have to pay tax on it, or we could defer the tax. So we're not going to get deep into that. But am I right that there are ways to do it both situations?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, in theory, they might hit you with some weird thing called active business income if you're doing that throughout the whole year. But there's ways to avoid that in the scenario you're talking about. Hell, we could shape it as an option. An option becomes an investment. And once again, it just depends on how many times we do it. And Mitch, just let me try to one-up you. A few years back, I had somebody do pretty much the exact same thing, but it was shaped as an option. And they made $2 million profit off of, I think, 20,000 bucks. And ever since then, and this was inside of his Roth IRA too. So that was completely, totally tax-free. So anytime I've met him since then, I started singing that old song, na, 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 but he was the $2 million man inside of his Roth, completely tax-free. That was amazing.
Well, I've done a poor job here because I should have said this up front. Tim Berry's been an attorney and specializing in this arena for over 2 decades. I know he doesn't look that old, but he's old. He's very old. And he's very experienced in a lot of good things that happened and a lot of bad things that happened to other people that he had to try to help them get out of.
Yeah.
But Tim specializes in A, keeping you compliant, and B, if you've done a transaction that may not be compliant, he'll help you assess what to do about that. So make sure when you get on board, that's one of the big pluses of taxfreefuture.com is that you always have Tim to call, and we can run scenarios by Tim before we do them. Like just exactly what I said. If I'd have styled my example as an option instead of a straight out earnest money contract, I might have been in a better position. So every time I go to do some of this stuff, I always call Tim, go, this is what I'm doing. You know, after a while, some of the transactions get to be routine, so I don't have to call him on everything. But if it's a slightest bit out of routine, I always just run it by Tim real quick and go, hey, this is what this is what I'm thinking about doing. What do you see? What do you feel like? You know, and then of course, like 80% of the time, he's like, I wouldn't do it like that. I'd do it like this. And then he tells me why, and then I agree, and then I do it his way. So, again,
the other thing too, Mitch, is we got the options, and maybe if they have a little bit more money than $250, we can always go out and buy a property that already has debt on it, buy it subject to that debt, have the person carry back a note, the original seller carry back a note for their portion of the equity, and then they can go out and market that, or they could rent it out. I mean, the world's your oyster. There's just so many interesting ways that you can utilize the money inside this tax-free account, structure a deal that you make a profit, and then hopefully if we do things correctly, not pay taxes on those profits. And these profits are much more reliable than, hopping inside the stock market and hoping we don't have some weird event just decimate our life savings.
Well, exactly what Tax-Free Future is all about is to take control of your own financial future. You care about your money more than anybody else in the world. And why would you let that go to people on Wall Street who have hundreds, if not thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of accounts, and you're just a number? And learn how to proliferate. It doesn't have to be in real estate. It could be in anything that you can buy low and sell high, probably, as long as it's legal, and we wouldn't want to go out and like buy a truckload of cocaine or anything and try to flip it. But there's, the world's your oyster. You could put an option to buy a note for a certain amount of money and then sell your option to another note buyer and make a hit. How big can that hit be? It's as good as your negotiating skills. The deal is to get into this and start to get into the minutia. And how you really learn is by doing deals. And you don't want to just jump out there and do one and hope you're okay. Talk to Tim before you do one, and then pretty soon things start to get kind of routine. So you have any other questions, Jen? I want to make sure people know that they can send in questions. We're going to be addressing them. Jen
Absolutely.
at taxfreefuture.com.
Yeah, so Jen at taxfreefuture.com. And so Frank from St. Louis, he asked, how do we keep from having active business income in our tax deferred account?
I'm going to defer that to Tim.
Well, the simple answer is you structure the investment so it doesn't meet the code definition of active business income. One of the easiest ways to do that is the code says active business income is whenever you're continually seeking a profit throughout the year. So if you only do this once, maybe twice, and just in a short time period, good chance it's not going to be active business income. Having said that, every situation is different. We really need to know your exact situation to figure out the best way to do it for you.
See, that's exactly what I'm saying. There's some people, everybody's different, every market's different, every transaction's different. So, if you're a guy that only has enough money or enough willpower to do 1 or 2 deals a year, you may not have any issues. But another guy who says, I want to do this, 40 times this year, might have to do it a little bit different, so, or might have to look at things different. So that's why Tim's so important to be in our corner, because he knows the code. I was going to say, you said it depends on the code and that you don't meet the requirement for active business income. I was going to say, everyone in the audience, raise your hand if you've read that code. I haven't read that code. You probably, no one out there I'm talking to has read the code. The only person that's read it that I know of that understands it and that is really enthusiastically and weirdly passionate about it, freaking weirdly passionate about reading tax code for this stuff, is this guy named Tim Berry. He's a freak. He's a freak. So I don't know.
We're so blessed to have him on our team.
Well, thank you.
That's why we're here. So Tim, anything you want to say before maybe we wrap up?
I really can't think of it other than if people like the information we're giving on this one, stay tuned. We're going to have all sorts of case studies to make you smarter investors so you can start increasing your financial future and make it tax-free, thus tax-free future.
Jen, how about you? Anything you say?
Awesome. You know, if you want more information about taxfreefuture.com, you can email me. I'm happy to schedule a consultation with you, get you started. And this is the benefits that you get. Mitch's education, you get Tim on your power team, and power teams are so important. And to call up a tax attorney and get advice, it's not going to be free and it's not going to be cheap. And so you get that with your membership with taxfreefuture.com. So it's well worth the investment.
I do want to preface that with, you know, there's some situations that are more in depth and will require a lot more work. So sometimes Tim may have to charge an hourly rate if you've got something going on. But for the most part, in the little things to help you get started, we just want to help you get going and feel comfortable that you can make some deals without getting sideways. So I would like to tell everyone to stay tuned. Next time, we're going to be talking about how you can do more passive investing with your money at taxfreefuture.com, and it's kind of the different accounts and what they mean. And you know, a lot of people out there retired, or they already have a full-time job, they make great money, and they want to get their money working, but they don't have time to take out of their schedule anymore. So we're going to be talking about the most passive ways to invest your tax deferred or tax-free account money. Okay.
Yeah. And then send your questions in to Jen at taxfreefuture.com, and we will put together various topics. And, you know, when your question fits in that topic, we'll make sure we get it answered.
All right. This is Mitch Stephen with Tax Free Future. I'd like to say goodbye to Jennifer Falloon and Tim Berry. See y'all later.
Thanks, guys. See y'all. Take care.
See you next time.